am then, down on the Hove seafront. Absolutely stunning day, drawing to a close. And with the end of one day, it becomes the beginning of a year. So I'm quite excited. I'll spend the next year trying to improve my physical health, trying to improve my mental health. Oh, that's a stunning sunset. And yeah, generally just getting out of a bit of a physical and mental hole I've been in, so it's just a little chronicling of that.
So the challenge is to become as physically fit and muscular and healthy in general, so things like clearing up my skin, cutting out cigarettes and various other things, but we'll get into that. The basic tenet is to get as physically fit and muscular, so I'm going to try and put on a lot of muscle mass, especially in my upper body, because I'm very, very weak across my chest and my shoulders and stuff. And I've got 1 year to do it, 1 year to reach a maximum efficacy of body mass, basically. I'll also not be cutting this bad boy for that entire year. So I shaved it off the other day, and then today is the start of the challenge, and I shall be not cutting my hair for a year. I might continue that on longer, because I used to have very, very long hair down to about there, so that might take a couple of years, but initially it's just going to be 1 year, no haircuts, no styling, nothing, just let it grow naturally from how it is. Then I'm also thinking the point 3 of this is I'm going to train in a martial art for an entire year and see what level of progression I can get. As I'm not currently employed, I could potentially do several days a week of the martial art, and that would be a good way to bulk up my body and give me a motivation for physical fitness other than simply just going to the gym. The fourth part of this is that I'm going to remain abstinent from any stimulants for 1 year. So that's sort of part A, which is, so I'm including caffeine, even tea, green tea, anything like that. I just want to be completely at a normal level and get my energy levels through food and exercise and how well I sleep, things like that, because I've been having ongoing trouble with sleep issues and all this kind of stuff. And then the other correlating side of that is I want to withdraw from diazepam, which I'm prescribed as part of my condition for anxiety, or the anxiety aspect of my condition, and I want to remove them completely over the next year. Now, it might not even take a year to remove them, but the stabilisation of never having any for a year might actually be quite a challenge. And then any pharmaceutical sedatives as well. I sometimes occasionally get prescribed sleeping tablets because I've been having, they're mainly antihistamine style ones, but I've been having trouble sleeping and things like that. So remove stimulants and sedatives from my diet completely. Now, that includes alcohol, any cannabis, any recreational drugs, anything like that. Just completely nothing that alters my energy levels, nothing that stimulates me or sedates, basically. And then the fifth point is just to chronicle the entire process with this video blog that is here happening now, and possibly a written blog as well.
So yeah, down the seafront again. It's an absolutely stunning evening, or it's beginning to be the evening. And I got thinking about what's the reason for this. I guess my primary motivation is the fear of death, I suppose. Not in any grandiose existential way, just in terms of mediating what is inevitable, doing everything I can. Sorry, I'm just getting my tea here. Doing everything I can to slow down the unnecessary process of pain. That with things like this shit, it's going to be a lot worse if I don't stop. And it's potentially, as was rightly pointed out to me on one occasion, maybe that it's already too late to mediate those symptoms and to mitigate the pain of my future death. But at least if I'm in a physically healthy, mentally healthy position, with the mentally healthy, I'll be more robust to actually navigate the experience of going through that kind of process, and be physically of course, the stronger my immune system is, the stronger my body is, the stronger my whole physical system is in altogether, the easier it's going to be to recover if there is anything like an incidence of cancer or emphysema or anything like that. And it's not just cigarettes that have been the issue, as I'm sure those of you who know me know. It's general sedentary lifestyle, general drug taking, drinking, all these kind of unhealthy behaviours that for a long time seemed necessary for my survival. And I don't say that lightly, I don't say that jovially, like it did. There's definitely, I've been prone to recreational use, but I can honestly say that in my head it seemed as though I needed a lot of these things to manage and to survive. Just looking out at you can make out all the wind turbines there. They're fucking cool. So for the week ahead then, just this first week, my plan is to cut these down. This is around my 10th today. I'll probably get to about 15 in total. And just to gradually get that down to a solid 10. Then for the next week, 7. Next week, 5. Whilst possibly either phasing in some sort of nicotine replacement, whether that be vaping or anything else. And then this lovely beverage I'm drinking is tea. I've only had 1 cup of coffee today. And again, for those of you who know me, having only 1 cup of coffee is quite a challenge. There's been the past year of things where I've gone through some much more severe challenges that I've kept deliberately personal, because those things aren't always easy to manage or talk about. So yeah, in general, the next week ahead of me then, for a bit of positive note at the end, I'm going to try and get my cigarettes down to, which 15 even for me is a half or a third of what I would normally smoke in a day. So I'm already progressing just from not having coffee. I'm not overstimulated and not needing to smoke all the time. Excuse me. And yeah, just completely stop coffee, get tea down to maybe 5 cups a day or 4 cups a day, and get the cigarettes down to as low as possible. And the next week I'm going to be joining the local gym, which I will feature a little crafty video about probably when I join. And then we're going to see from there. There's the possibility of martial arts, but I'm going to wait until I've got my general physical fitness up to a certain level before I start indulging in martial arts, because they are very intensive, they are very exhausting. We've got Saracen just here. I went on a 15-minute intensive, quite forceful bike ride, and then like comfortable speed, but a bit beyond my normal limits, and I intend to cycle back at the same rate. And yeah, so that's my brief summary of today, and then I'll see you at the rest of the video.
So what are the potential limitations of this process? So I'm going to dive right in. The first thing is social anxiety. As mentioned earlier, like, it's quite inherent that if you become physically fit, and the things that you're required to do to become physically fit, such as spending time in gym, spending time doing martial arts, spending time in general interacting with, even if it's just a PT, like personal trainer, or a sensei, like a martial arts tutor, I'm always required to not just sit in my house on my own, which is the norm for me. So that's maybe a potential limitation, at least initially, until I can get the ball rolling healthy enough. And it's definitely impacted my ability to sustain kind of motivation for fitness in general. Finances are a further issue. So I don't have any employment, I'm disabled, I'm on benefits. I'm fine with that, but there are certain limitations that I can't just suddenly throw several £1,000s in 1 year towards a personal trainer or to martial arts classes, like regimented, like 5 days a week or something like that, as one might do when trying to get extremely physically fit. The further symptom issues being the actual schizophrenia itself, so hallucinations, potential delusions, especially if I'm withdrawing from the medication, anxiety, apathy, depression, all these kind of things that may be a factor, which leads on to further withdrawal symptoms and potential psychotic relapse. That is a real risk for someone with my kind of condition, because when you chemically alter yourself with an antipsychotic, it draws everything down into a very thin bandwidth. And even if someone who didn't have psychosis was to become acclimatized to being on antipsychotics, when withdrawing from them, there would be potential for a psychotic episode. So it's something that needs to be monitored very carefully with doctors, professionally, respectfully and gently. But unfortunately, the meds that I'm on apparently are very, very easy to withdraw from in comparison to many, many of the other atypical antipsychotics. Now the next thing I've listed, and this is quite poignant, is boredom. So I'm prone, as I'm sure many people who may be watching this are, to boredom and frustration and eating the same food, doing the same things, doing the same exercises, and just keeping a healthy rotation of activities in your life, and being able to sustain a regular healthy habit, which I can honestly find quite dull. Like, I quite live in the moment. I'm hoping there's going to be a certain element of more discipline will develop through doing physical exercise that will mean that I can be more dedicated to projects, be more consistent, be more regular, and mitigating boredom is a big part of that. And the last potential limitation that I've sort of flagged up is the lack of current appropriate social structure. So it ties into social anxiety to a certain extent. There is a limitation on what I can do, because I'm essentially a bit of a recluse, and I don't currently have any structures in my life that are revolved around exercise or fitness or well-being in general that are cemented heavily as part of my life. In the past, there's like even something as simple as you go out to the pub to drink with people. That's a part of my life that I need to remove. At least 99% and keep it incredibly rare, if not the aim is to stop doing it altogether. But then I need to filter in an alternate social system or social structure to be able to sustain this kind of new mentality or this new way of being and keep my energy levels up, not only physically with good diet and mediating chemicals and all these kind of physical aspects of it, and exercise as well, but also mentally having a supportive environment where what I do inspires others and these others inspire me, and it creates a domino effect of development. And I don't currently really have that. So that's sort of the potential limitations anyway. I'll be back. So this is a quick rundown of the food I've got for the week. It should be a nice lovely image of it all displayed on the screen. You see at the back we've got about 6 pints of semi-skim milk, which to go with the tea on the right, because I'm trying not to drink coffee. I've also got rooibos tea, which is non-caffeinated whatsoever. I'm slowly phasing out from caffeinated tea to rooibos. I've got brown rice, white rice, a kilo of each. I've got 4 tins of baked beans, don't know how much that weighs. The weird object in the cellophane is a whole rabbit, and then I've got a packet of bacon, I've got some black pudding, I've got some fresh chicken, I've got some curly kale. And generally with that, I'm just intending to spread it out quite a bit, but over the coming weeks I'm going to gradually increase my food intake quite substantially. So that's, for me now, that's a lot of food still anyway in comparison to what I'm normally eating per week, because I've actually got quite a low calorie diet, which is where I've managed to maintain this level of slimness, but not necessarily a level of progression or development in terms of muscle and health. Yeah, so that's just a bit for that. So, what are the motivations? What's the motivation behind the Viking challenge? I'm sure it's probably apparent, but these are all generally positive things to do. But the phrase that sort of comes to mind would be, it's never too late to throw your life away, but one day it could be too late to turn it around. So, it's never too late to pick up a bottle of booze and down it. It's always going to be a potential to just be a waste man and throw stuff away, be relentlessly consumed with a self-destructive lifestyle, that's always going to be an option to me. I don't think it'll ever stop being an option because of the fundamental way that our society works. Like, it's even whether it be counterculture with drugs or whether it be current mainstream culture with alcohol, there's just a general thing where it's never too late to stop fucking things up, basically. But very quickly and very easily it can be too late to turn stuff around. So I'm going to go a little bit more into that, but that's the basic phraseology that sums up what I'm talking about. So the first thing I listed is fatherhood and the desire to see my son grow up, and inspiring him the motivation to excel and maximise his own potential. Nothing, I think, is more inspiring to a young boy to have a father figure that is A, emotionally available, but B, physically available, C, got energy levels to interact with him, D, profoundly works hard and makes sure that they can demonstrate some level of resilience, strength, and all these things that, male or female regardless, but these qualities of a kind of strength that are attributed as traditionally masculine, but I think, yeah, like I said, it's cross-gender. I don't think they're necessarily gender related, but it's more like, I think being a strong father isn't about being stern or being committed to running yourself into the ground for a job or something like that. It's about being there. Yeah, and if I carry on even the way I am now with cigarettes, for example, I'm probably not going to see him grow up into full adulthood, because I smoke a hell of a lot and it's damaging me, and it's already affects my breathing, and that's particularly uncomfortable to talk about. But in general, yeah, I want to be a positive influence. I want to be someone he looks up to, not because I'm his father, but because I'm someone who's genuinely kind of admirable in my behaviour, or at least exhibits qualities that demonstrate strength. And that's not something that's currently a big part of my life, because I've spent a lot of time being very ill, very depressed, very unmotivated, and whether those things cross-correlate or not, it's sort of my responsibility to not just dwell on the past and not be stuck in the damage done to me, and just to turn it around. So that's the first key thing for me. It's a lot of it is about being a good example, effectively, which I probably could have summed up all of that with, but it's to be a good example. The second thing is that aging is brutal. Seeing people grow old in ill health and poor, this is what I've written specifically, and in poor emotional levels of emotional stability or support, is basically terrifying and disheartening. And for the most part, it's unnecessary, and in some regards, self-inflicted. I currently, for all the challenges I've overcome in the past 10 years, don't feel positive about the state I'll be in my twilight years, or even the likelihood of living long enough to find out what it's like to fade away. In a lot of ways, it's potentially already too late, like with smoking and the relentless alcohol and various things that I've used in the past. And I want to ensure that I minimise, if that is the case, the suffering of both myself and my family and loved ones by doing the best I can to mitigate an early and painful death. And that's basically it. Like, I've seen 50-year-old, 60-year-old men bench pressing in weightlifting competitions. I've seen 70-year-old men walking on their hands fit as a fiddle, probably with more energy than I have. And I think it's a misconception that with age comes misery and isolation and degeneration. I think it's something that it does happen, but I think, as I said, self-inflicted. So when I said self-inflicted, I'm referring to like alcohol, drug dependency, abuse, and these are all very complex issues, things like that. It's like no one, and I've discussed these in other videos, but in some regards, like just not having the kind of the oomph and the desire to develop change can be stifling as well. Yeah, so that's kind of that factor. that I wanted to mention, just that we're all going to die, and I would like to spend as much of the time between now and then being at optimum performance, being healthy, being productive, maximising my life, maximising my happiness, maximising my resilience, maximising my strength, and potentially even reversing some of the damage I've done by smoking and drinking and drugs and all these kind of crazy things I've done in my life. And if not reversing, at least mitigating some of and off-putting and offsetting some of those potential negative outcomes later on in life. So the point 3 is recovery. So my mental health, essentially, and again this is what I've written, has been utterly terrible since I was about 13 or 14 years old. On and off a plethora of different sort of psychiatric medications, whether they be antidepressants, antipsychotics, sedatives, sleeping tablets, all these kind of things. Or an equal plethora of illicit substances to try and overcome and mitigate the difficulties I face as both a consequence of my environment, perhaps, and any genetic predisposition I may have. And the key to withdrawal or reduction of all substances, regardless of their legal status or who prescribes them, is basically mitigating and moving away from environmental and genetic predisposed factors, but also addressing the things that are actually the problem. So, for example, with addiction, compulsive use of something is usually to cover a trauma, usually to cover or help manage, even if it's something, I've talked about this in other videos, but even something such as stress from work, like you want to drink at the weekend sometimes, and for example, that sort of thing. And I attribute a lot of the harm to my psyche and body purely to drugs of all kinds. Whether they've been ultimately beneficial or wisdom giving is regardless, because it's always inevitably been at the expense of my body or brain. And this, I do include in this medications that I've been prescribed since I was a teenager. So I don't doubt that I needed psychiatric medication. I still find it useful. I don't doubt that in a lot of ways that people might not find hard to relate to and others might not at all, find that recreational substances were enormously important in maintaining my sense of well-being, but physically it's done me no good. Any of these things, these chemical alterations, have ultimately led to damage. So, for example, my antipsychotics have really damaged my stomach, as did alcohol. Smoking has really damaged my lungs. Stimulants damage my brain and my heart, and so on and so forth. And it's just, I'm trying to get off all of these things so that I can be in a more kind of acceptance of sober sort of state, and that essentially finding out who I really am at the core of it without being reliant on chemicals to alter my mental state. So the last aspect of that is that body image, basically. Number 4. I've had body image issues, my whole life, and suffered with anorexia on and off since pretty much being a teenager. And I'm finally at a weight 13.51 stone, so about 86 kilograms, I think. I'll check that. I'm finally at a weight I'm comfortable with, and I'm quite happy with my body. Like, this is the most weight I've held without going down into underweight, being significantly underweight and having terrible energy levels and kind of looking very gaunt. But I still suffer, despite being comfortable with it, I still suffer from a terrible inner voice that's quite abusive about the things that, and probably in some regards rightly so, I don't know if that's easy to say, but I'm very negative about myself in regards to things that I can change but don't. So things like smoking, drinking, drugs, fatty foods, junk food, crap, sweets, cakes, etc. Blah 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 blah. Now I'm at a level where I'm happy with my body mass and I'm comfortable with it, but I think I need to come more into alignment between what I should be doing, what I know is the best thing to do, how to come out of these physical health related issues, and what I'm actually doing, which is starvation, malnourishment to a certain extent, or drinking loads of coffee so I don't to suppress my appetite, smoking, things like that. So, be these dietary issues or indeed the side effects of medicines or drugs, I'm generally in quite a poor condition. I want this to change. I want to feel positive about myself from a physical perspective, and because this anxiety about self-maintenance, and those of you know me personally, you must know that's an ongoing issue. And sometimes that anxiety about my poor self-maintenance and general ill health prevents me from even leaving the house. So yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. So this is the 1 year Viking challenge. Get fit, get sane, get sober. I've been David Bradley, aka Schizophreniforms. Thank you for watching.